Well, Wayne, would you mind starting us in a prayer, please?
Sure. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we're thankful for the opportunity to be here tonight. We're thankful for Adam and his willingness to teach his class, and just pray that you'd bless him as during this time that he would be able to remember a lot of the things that he's experienced that he could share with us that would help to bring us closer to you and help us to better understand his life and the sacrifices that he's made, and that he can be an example to us and to others as well, Father. And we just pray that you would watch over and guide us in all that we do, and that you would be with any of the people who are not able to be here tonight. They're sick, and many people are noted in our bulletin, Father, and that you know their needs, and we just pray, Father, that you would be with them. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, brother. So I wasn't here last week, and I'm sorry about that. The reason I wasn't here is because I was sick, and kind of got a little nervous that the vomiting and the fever and things like that might be okay. He's finally got COVID, but it wasn't that at all. But I do want to share with you what it was, and I learned a great deal about myself and about what was going on. So I had spent Tuesday, or was it Wednesday morning? It was that day. It was Wednesday morning. I'm so glad she's here. Having lunch with some really good friends of mine. We went to eat some sushi, or I had sushi. But anyway, I got to spend time with them. One of them is my old ops psychologist, and so she talks to our guys about a lot of things going on with them, and she's spent years talking with me and helping me and helping Lisa and others. And the other one was our old first sergeant. And so I spent the lunchtime listening to them and just letting them vent about things that are going on right now in Afghanistan, things that are going on inside their units, and things that are happening, and things that they're stressed about, things that are bothering them, and I just let them vent. And I did make the flippant comment to them. I was like, I'm so glad I'm retired because I don't have to deal with this anymore. And they laughed it off, and so that was it. Got home later that evening and started doing some sheetrock, some drywall, and got ill. I got physically sick, and so it just I was like, man. What did I do? Was it the sushi? Have I finally, caught it? What's going on? So anyway, that's why I wasn't here. But on Thursday, a buddy of mine, he's a retired senior master sergeant, E8. He and I worked together a lot over the last 10 years of my career. And he had spent some time over at the VA talking to their psych at the VA. And so he had swung by the house just to say, hey, man, I went over and I did this, and it was good for me, and I really think, maybe you should go over there and give it a shot and see how things are. So anyway, I gave him a call and talked to the lady into letting me talk to the psychologist on the phone for about 15 minutes. And in that 15 minutes, he helped me understand that the things the coping mechanisms I had in place while I was on active duty, while I was in uniform, kind of aren't there anymore. I mean, some of them are, but most of them aren't, And so he thinks that I made myself physically ill sitting there listening, because I thought about what these guys were telling me, and I worry about them because of the things they're going through. So anyway, so it wasn't that I was sick, but I made myself sick, and so I just want to be open and honest with you guys about that, and I thank Todd for being here and covering for me. But things like that impact me, and I didn't, I had coping mechanisms for years that I was able to deal with and be able to deal with it and work through it. That now I need to find what some new coping mechanisms are. The past couple of years, my prayer life has definitely changed. After becoming an elder, and things are good with that, but and so I give that wholehearted credit. I don't know if that's a good way to say it, but for me being able to deal with things that since I've gotten out of the military, because I mean I've had almost zero stress since I got out of the military, There's not been many things that have really stressed me out. And so anyway, so that was some good insight for me, and a learning thing for me. But I just wanted to be honest with you guys about why I wasn't here last Wednesday.
So about 15 years ago, I was watching news and getting involved, and I actually ended up in the hospital, took an ambulance ride, and went to the emergency room, had 3 visits to the hospital.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it was decided that it was exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's one of the big reasons why Jennifer and I, we simply don't watch news.
Yeah, you can get totally wrapped around it. And that day, I absolutely got wrapped around their emotions and what they're dealing with and the struggles that they're dealing with, and the things that I learned that I would know on a day-to-day basis, but I would be acting on and working against and helping and doing things for that I learned, during that short period of time at lunch. And there's really nothing I can do about it except pray for them and give them the support they need, and just give them a listening ear. So that was very interesting to learn. It's as I've gotten out. So.
No, I was just listening to it's funny, I was just listening to this on the way over here while I was driving, but it's an episode about the gut health, and it's talking about when you're under stress, that your stomach doesn't produce acid. And I didn't know that, but when you eat, the first line of defense to kill bacteria and that sort of thing is the stomach acid. And when you don't produce that acid, you actually will end up, the food will putrefy in your stomach.
Oh, wow.
And you will actually get sick, and it can cause a lot of the problems you sound like you had. So.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
That is just one of the things that happen. There's a bunch of things that happen. The brain actually will slow down flowing of blood.
Yeah,
and to a person with ADD like me, it's felt even more distinctly.
Yeah.
You've seen you've seen me shut down.
Absolutely. Well, what I went over the Wednesday before was the first 10 years of my career, and just the struggles that I had, and the peace that I found towards the end of that 10 years. Being in Iraq and arguing and being very frustrated with God and with myself and with the way things were going, and being able to work that out and being able to get through that and come out on the other side, what I think is a better person. I know Lisa agrees that I'm a better person. Still struggle with things, but so it was good. It was good that I had to go back to Iraq so quickly. I was there for 9 months, and then was home for about 10 months, and then had to go back for 8 months. And wasn't supposed to go back, but ended up having to go back. So, but it was a good thing. It was a good thing. So peace is what I was talking to you guys about that I found. And so for the next portion of it is the last 13 years of my career, and the word there is contentment. The contentment that I found. And so peace and contentment really go hand in hand, and I guess I had never really paid attention to that and really focused on that. But, on the last part of that, after I came home in early 06, when I got home in early 06, I told my supervision, I'm done. I'm at my 10-year mark. I'm out. I'm frustrated because you sent me back to Iraq, because I didn't really completely understand at that time that it was a good thing. I'm frustrated that I felt like they were holding me back and not letting me do what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do, and so there was just a lot of frustration there. And so I was just like, I'm done. I'm getting out. To preface that, for the first 10 years of my career, there was one job that I really, really, really wanted, and I tried hard to get that job. And every time I turned around, my leadership was telling me, no, you can't go. No, you can't do it. No, we can't lose you. No. So for 10 years, I really tried to get this job. Even the folks that worked where I wanted to go work would come over, and they would ask for outlandish things, or they would ask for things to be done, and my leadership would tell them, no, we're not doing it. we're just not doing it. You know, and I'm a vehicle maintainer, and these are other vehicle maintainers. So in my mind, it's like, man, we got to watch each other's back. We got to help each other out. But my leadership's telling them no. And so, but they kept telling me at the job I wanted, man, if you come work for us, it'll be amazing. If you come work for us, we can help you out. If you come work for us, we really want you to come work for us. And I was like, I really want to too. But anyway, so I couldn't. But when I got back from that deployment in early '06, and I told him I was done, my supervisor looked at me and said, I'll let you go do this job if you'll stay in. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll stay in. I'll re-enlist. Let me go do this job that I really, really want to do. Then he looked at me and said, but you can only do it for 3 years, then you have to come back. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it for 3 years and I'll come back. At that time, not knowing that I would never come back, and that I would go to this job, and I would stay in this job, and I would do that job or some form of that job for the next 13 years. And to this day, being honest, that gentleman still does not like me. He'll see me in Home Depot or he'll see me in Lowe's, and he'll turn and walk the other way. He will not talk to me. He's still upset about that. And I mean, you know, basically I lied to him and told him that yes, I would come back after 3 years. But I learned so much, and the job satisfaction I got out of this new job was much more important to me than I would ever know. To me, it was just a cool job to go work with cool guys doing cool things with cool equipment. I mean, they would roll up and they would be in civilian vehicles with civilian license plates, and I'm just like, you want me to change the oil on this? And they're like, yeah. And my supervisor would go, no, we're not changing the oil on that. Not knowing that it was an actual government vehicle, and that it just happened to have regular Okaloosa County plates on it. And so I learned about all this later on. But so these guys did really cool things, and when my family would come visit, I would drive them over to the other side of base, because back pre 9/11, you could go to a lot of places that you can't go to now. And so I would drive my family over to that side of base, and I would drive them into this compound, and I would drive them around, and I'd be like, see all this cool stuff? Isn't this cool? I mean, look at that. There's ATVs over here. There's motorcycles over there. Look at those boats. Man, I would love to come work over here. So I got my wish. After my 10-year mark, he said, yes, go do it. You can go do it for 3 years. So I went over and interviewed, and they seemed to like me, so they hired me and let me come into that job. And it was a permanent change of assignment, which I learned later. All of our senior leadership always thought we were on loan to these folks. They never realized that we were permanently assigned to them. And so technically we no longer fell under them, we fell over to who we had been assigned to. And so once I learned that, after I'd been over there for a few years, I started using that to my advantage, because I also learned while I was over there that the reason they didn't want me to go was because everybody that they sent over there to work
Never
as a
came
mechanic, not that they didn't ever come back, they were the problem children. They were we don't know what to do with you, or you're not real good at your job, or we can't figure you out, or you're a nuisance, or you're a problem. And so that's where they would send them. They would send them over there to work. And so for the longest time, the people that went over there to work were not the best of who we could send. And so there was a bad taste in their mouths over there, in their leadership. So when I got over to the 2-3 STS and started working, my whole thing was, I'm going to do the best I can to show them that I'm a valuable member of the team. I don't wear a beret. I can't go shoot people. I can't go, do trauma surgery on somebody. Those things I can't talk to planes and have planes, drop bombs. But I can do everything I can to make myself valuable to them, to where they know I'm a part of the team. And so I did that, and probably about killed myself for the first 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then And then at about my 5-year mark, I was, every time they would come to me and ask me a question, my answer was no. I was just fed up. In my mind, huge respect for them, so don't take this the wrong way, but in my mind, they were kindergartners with license to kill and heal people. That was just their mentality. And they didn't know much about the Air Force as a whole. They only knew what they knew about their little community. And so I took it upon myself to try to educate them and show them and teach them and teach others that I was working with to do the same for them, so that there was some information flow back and forth, so that all of us learned something together. But once I figured out that our senior leadership on the vehicle maintenance side thought we were on loan, I started using that to my advantage and was able to show them, no, we're not. We have been permanently assigned to this unit. We belong to this unit. This unit owns us. So I'm not going to take the problem children anymore. In fact, since I now have this leverage, I'm taking this guy because he's the best at what he does and we need him. And so it started working. We weren't getting problem children anymore. I was getting who I asked for. So I would by name request mechanics all the time. And that ended up, and they couldn't say no because the senior leadership over them realized the importance of where we worked and was like, yes, let him have him. Let him have. So I feel like I made myself a valuable member of the team. But I was wholeheartedly invested in what we were doing over there. And so my whole thought process was, yeah, you guys do what you do and you're special, and it takes, special, like literally special, not special in quotation marks, special at what you do, and it takes 2 years for you to get trained to do the job that you do, and there's a lot of time and investment into you, so we're going to do everything we can to give you the best quality, the best service, the best of everything. And so we started doing that, and being so emotionally invested in that, I got to know a lot of them personally. I got to know a lot of them personally. The whole structure within that community is the same as it is in the regular Air Force, but it's more tight knit. And there's a lot, like there were officers that when we were working together, they would listen to what the enlisted had to say, and the officers, we would listen to what they had to say, but we could go back and forth with each other on a level that you never felt comfortable with outside of that community. Other officers and senior enlisted would take offense, and I mean, I got yelled at one time because the first time I started using email, I sent out an email that was very important. It was a stop doing this or you're going to tear stuff up, and it was in big red letters, bold red letters, underlined in red in certain places, and I got yelled at because I was yelling via email. And so, but if I did something like that in this community where I was now working, they were like, "Oh, dang,
we shouldn't be doing that.
DY's serious. He's upset, and we're doing something we shouldn't be doing, and we need to listen to him." So it was a just total different mentality, and a lot of them operate in the gray area. They don't really like being told no, but if there's
By
anybody,
okay.
they don't.
In the military, I mean, something they're trying to do or something.
Anything. Hey, I want to take that. No. Well, I'm going to figure out a way to get it. That's just their mentality, and so they never take no. And so I learned that real quick. When I got to my 5-year mark and started telling them no, that goes back to the people that I was handpicking to bring over, because I would tell them no, and they'd be like, "Sergeant Sahada, can I borrow or use?" And he would then think about it and decide whether or not he was going to upset me or if I was just in a foul mood. And 9 times out of 10, I was just in a foul mood. And so he would say, "Yeah, let's go get it." And so I had good people working for me who knew it got to the point where they would come in and be like, "Hey, Sergeant Dunaway," and Sahadat would turn around and go, "He's busy. You just need to talk to me." And so he took over, even though I was there and present. So, you know, good people that I was working for, but I also had very good people working for me and with me. Where was I going with that? Emotionally invested. Emotionally invested. So when I got there in April of '07, the community had just lost somebody in February. A PJ had just been killed in action. And I didn't know this, and I didn't completely understand it, and I was just getting my feet wet and just trying to figure everything out. So that didn't really affect me. And then
What's up, EJ?
Pararescue men. They're combat EMTs. They're trained to do search and rescue. They're trained to do battlefield medicine. They're like a Navy corpsman on steroids. He was killed in action. And so I didn't know him, and I didn't know of him or about him, and I didn't hear many people talk about him that I remember. Less than a year later, they also lost a combat controller who was killed in action. And so I do remember him being killed in action, but he wasn't from our unit here on Hurlburt Field. And so that was the first combat-related death that I paid attention to, because it affected the community that I was working in. There were other combat-related deaths over the years that I knew about, but I felt like I was so far removed because the Air Force is pretty large and there's a lot of vehicle mechanics in the Air Force. And so I just never really paid attention to it, and it never affected me. And so I started understanding how small this community was. I think whenever I got out, there were under 2,100 total across the entire Air Force that belonged to this community. And so that's relatively small. But then in February of '09, a buddy who I had worked with, who I had helped train, who I had gone on training missions with, who I had sat with and ate with and slept in a bunk beside, was also killed in action. And there was a time where that community did not trust their vehicle maintainers well enough to actually take them on deployments, to take them downrange with them, because they felt like that it was just too much to try to keep track of. Some people had done some dumb things, and so there was that loss of trust. But since I had gotten there in April of '07, up until that deployment cycle in '09, we had been able to earn that trust back, and I was able to send one of my mechanics. And so I sent one of my guys downrange with them. And when Tim was killed, it was a blow to the whole community, but it hit me because I was like, man, I knew this guy. I ate with him. I know him. I've seen him run around in his underwear. That's how well I know him, kind of thing. And so whenever it got time to repatriate his remains back to the States, they picked my guy. They picked Corey to bring his remains back home. And that was just a huge sense of honor that his brothers, Tim's brothers, that wear the berets and have worked with him and trained with him for so long, picked one of my guys to repatriate his body back to the States. And so I was just, there was a sense of pride and honor there that, even to this day, I'm just like, man, Corey was one of those problem kids that I knew could be straightened out, and I had pulled him over, and he did. He turned everything around. He's doing amazing things in his career right now. But he was one of those kids that probably would have been kicked out of the military relatively quickly. But so he brought Tim back home, and Tim's family from Washington State came down for the memorial, and Lisa and I let them borrow one of our trucks to be able to ride around town in, because we couldn't get them rental cars at that time for whatever reason. And we took his family out on ATV rides out on the range. And I mean, we treated his family with the dignity and respect that they deserved, because they had just lost, their family member. And that was the first time I'd really ever dealt with that. So there was a huge amount of responsibility that I felt on my shoulders, because the vehicles that they ride around in are my responsibility. Some of the training that they have to go through is my responsibility. And flying them to and from country, it eventually became my responsibility. And so there was a huge amount of pressure that I felt there. But I didn't know and didn't fully understand that contentment yet. And then in 2010, in September of 2010, my really good buddy, Danny Sanchez, was killed in action. And he was shot by friendly Afghanis. He should not have technically been where he was, not of his own choosing, but anyway, he was put in a predicament that he should not have been put into by outside organizations, and it ended up getting him killed. And this is a young man that, man, always had a smile on his face. You could not hurt his feelings. He was always so happy. He rode with me from here all the way down to what's that place called? Avon Park. He rode with me in a tractor trailer from here all the way down to Avon Park. I had never driven a tractor trailer over the road before. And they're like, load up 2 Humvees and drive this tractor trailer. I'm like, yes, sir, I'm on it. And he rode with me. He was so bored the whole time, but he kept me in stitches, and he was just laughing, and we were cutting up, and it made the trip amazing. But then in September, he was killed. And so his family came into town, and we were doing the same thing. We were honoring his family, and we were treating him with dignity, and we were out to dinner with him. And we were sitting eating pizza, and my commander walked into the pizzeria over on Beale Parkway, and he motioned to all of us active duty guys to come outside. And so we got up and we went outside, and he looked at all of us and he said, Mark's been killed. And we were like, what? So Mark Forrester had been killed the day that Danny's family had come into town to do the memorial. So we all had to put on our game faces and go back in and sit with this grieving family, even though we had just lost somebody else. And so we go in and sit down, and she could tell something was off, and so she asked very bluntly, she said, what happened? And so the commander told her that we lost another one, and she didn't miss a beat. She looked right at him and said, somebody call his mama, I need to talk to her. And so right there, sitting at the table, while she's grieving her son, she calls his mama and talks to her, because she knows what she's going through. And my gosh, powerful. Oh man, just powerful. Anyway, and so dealing with these deaths, these are dudes that I know, and dudes that I've worked with, and dudes that I've run around with and joked around with, and dudes that I've kept from getting out of going to jail, and just doing the things that they needed to have done, being dependable. And it was just pressure upon pressure upon pressure. So I at that point had been deploying to Afghanistan with these guys, and I was put in charge of our operations center. And so my job while I was in country was to get them from Bagram to wherever they needed to go to the fight, to be assigned to their Army units or their Navy units. their deployments are weird to some people because whenever they go, when we go as a unit, but then they go out as ones and sometimes twos all over the country. So they're going with their brothers, and then they get there, and then they're farmed out all over, and they're by themselves with an Army unit or a Navy unit, sometimes a Marine unit, but not very often. And so, their only lifeline, their only contact while they're over there is back to the operations center. And so, sitting there and talking to them on the phone or back and forth, on chat or email was very important to them. And so I learned to give them what they needed on a daily, sometimes daily basis. Some of them needed it daily. Just giving that contact back and forth. And so in 2011, I was over there doing this job and was I think I was doing it at night. It all gets confusing some in my brain. I think we were over there Talon. Yeah. And so we were working at night. And so we would have these big monitors up in front of us. And so we would sit there and we would gather up all of the data from the day of all the operations that these guys had gone on so that we could send it back to Herbert Field. But we also had all these monitors, and all these monitors had UAV feeds. And so we would monitor these UAV feeds because our guys would be out in the field, and so there would be a Predator or there'd be a Scan Eagle or something overhead that was watching what was going on. And so we're watching it too and just kind of following along. We're also listening to a radio. And that was another thing that was stressful. Listening to these guys constantly get into, it's called a troops in contact, and constantly getting shot at and having to return fire. And so listening to that on the radio, you're listening to it your entire shift. So we're watching all this. It's a really quiet night. We knew there was a major operation going on, but we're watching all this. I'm sitting here, I'm talking to the lieutenant beside me, and so he's asking me questions left and right. What does this mean, and how do we do this, and what is that? And I'm telling him, leave the commander alone before he has his coffee in the morning. Don't talk to him until he's got his coffee. You can just keep your tail right there until he gets his coffee. Those kinds of things are going on back and forth. And then all of a sudden, we hear that there's troops in contact over the radio. And so we know there's only a certain team out there. Luckily, it was none of our guys that we took with us, but it was guys that we knew of and guys that we work with. We knew were on this. And so we watch their helicopter get shot out of the sky, and we watch it hit the ground. And that whole incident was very frustrating because there was a lot of politics involved about who goes, who doesn't go. I've got a guy on the phone telling me, "Man, get me authorization. I'm only 5 clicks away." And anyway, so it was just a very stressful time. But all of that ended up becoming extortion. That was the extortion shoot down. And so watching all of that, was also heavy, and knowing that we had 3 of our guys that went down on that bird, and then repatriating their bodies back onto Bagram, and their remains so commingled with the Afghanis that were on the helicopters, we had to repatriate everything back, and then Dover did their thing, and then we repatriated the Afghanis back to Afghanistan. It's just a lot. As much as I loved it, there was just a lot of stress. There was a lot going on, and it just seemed to be year after year after year after year.
This was the time that headquarters made all the calls, right?
Yeah.
The guys on the field couldn't make anything.
Yeah.
That was awful.
It was tough. It was tough. A lot of hands felt tied. A lot of things couldn't.
And sometimes it was politicians making calls that had no idea what they were doing.
In some cases, this one wasn't. This one was territorial. These are our guys. We'll go get them, kind of thing. And so I got back from that deployment, and I still remembered, and I still felt the peace. I still felt God's peace on me. And so, you know, I, I talked about Psalms 46, verse 1, the last Wednesday. And I found an explanation about Psalms 46. And one of the things that really had stuck out to me during that time was it's a comfortable truth in the consideration that his assistance, I mean God's assistance, comes at the time needed. And so I just remember feeling his peace and knowing that he was there. I mean, there were times whenever I thought, man, how could they have taken Mark, and how could Danny have been taken, you know? And some of my buddies got blown up, and you know, and lived, and I thank God for that. But I remember thinking at the time, man, how did this happen to him? And I mean, he's one of the good ones. But I never questioned God's peace. I just couldn't completely understand why did it happen to him. And I mean, I wouldn't want it to happen to anybody else, but why did it happen to these good folks? So I came back, and then I very shortly moved from that job to another job across base. Lisa was actually working there, and it was one step above the squadron level, so it was at the group level, and had a chief tell me that he didn't think it was a good idea for me to go work there because there would be a conflict of interest with Lisa working in the same building. And so anyway, Lisa did her due diligence, and she got a job at a very higher headquarters and moved on, and I didn't. So she did what she needed to do to make sure there was no conflict of interest. But I gave that job my entire. Whatever you need. I was starting a program from the ground up. We had all these small vehicles, ATVs, motorcycles, you know, specialized Humvees and specialized Zodiac boats and things like that. But every unit had their own different. And so it never made sense in my mind. Why are we compounding this? Why are we making this difficult on our higher headquarters when we could all have the same stuff and have the same supply line instead of you have to go here to get this and you have to go here to get this? And anyway, so that was my job, was to streamline all of that and run a program that basically took all of that out of the hands of the squadron and gave the squadron what they needed, but it was standardized across the force. And so I did that for a few months, and was just getting into the swing of it. And we had a parachute incident on Eglin, and two of our guys jumped out of a plane and collided midair and killed both of them. And these were again, why did it happen to these two guys? You know, these were the calming spirits in the building. These were good guys. And so so that happened, and my commander at the time, we didn't have a first sergeant, and my commander went to my supervisor and said, he's going to be my first sergeant until I release him and give him back. And my supervisor was not happy because I was just starting a program, and he said, well, if he can find somebody to replace him, then I guess, you know, I can't say anything about it. So I was able to pull one of the other guys over that I used to work with, and he was able to start running the program while I became the first sergeant. And so I sat and did that for 8 or 9 months. And but it was tough during that time because we had just lost these two guys. And I mean, this was in August of 15, and you know, these two guys were killed, and they were very well loved and respected. And so we're dealing with all of that in early August. And you know, August is our month. August is mine and Lisa's month. Excuse me. We were married in August. We moved down here in August. It's just August was a good month. We love August, right? Yeah. And then these two guys are killed. So we did a memorial for them, and then shortly after that, towards the end of the month, I got a phone call late at night. Hey, we need you back. need you to come in. Hurry up. So I told Lisa something's wrong. I need to go to work. And so I get to work and I walk through the front doors and I see my chief. He's standing up on the second floor, and I see him up there and he's like, get up here. We've got a situation. So I go upstairs, go into, it's called a skiff. It's a compartmentalized area that is, intelligence is kept in there, and it's a controlled environment. And so I walk in, and I see my old commander on a video screen, and I know he's downrange because I watched them get on a plane and fly out, and I see him on this video screen, and he doesn't look happy, and I'm like, dang, man, something happened. So I look over at the whiteboard, and I see two of my buddies' names, and I was like, man, I wonder who they're escorting back. And then I look back at my commander, and then I look back over again, and I realize they're not escorting anybody. Those two guys are being escorted. And they had been killed in Afghanistan. And I had just been around them. I had just been with them. You know, one of them came to go on this deployment outside from another squadron in North Carolina. And he had been there for the memorial, and he was so excited because he was hoping that he would get stationed back at Hurlburt Field, and his fiance was in Pensacola, and he was just so excited and so happy, and I was happy for him, and now I see his name on a whiteboard. And the other guy, just impeccable officer, just you can't ask for a better officer. And he and I had I had pushed him out to Africa, and he and I had sat together waiting on his plane, and we had doodled up. He was really good with his hands and building things, and we had doodled up on a napkin how I could make a outdoor kitchen in the backyard, and you know those kind. I mean, just a really cool dude, and both of them were being brought back home, and so. You know, I didn't realize until months later that through all of this, I could still be content because I know God's there. And that peace that I had learned years ago in Him, it took me that long to really understand the contentment that you can get in God's peace. God's peace is amazing. And in all the things that we had gone through, and all the people that we had lost, and all the personal struggles and family struggles, and you know, I asked to be put in this environment and loved and still love everything about it. But all of those losses, you know, that I know I've said contentment a lot, but man, I don't know how to convey, and I hope that you guys can understand that contentment in Him just makes everything okay, makes everything all right. You know, there's struggles and there's things that we go through, but when we're focused on Him and we feel His peace, and His peace is in us, it sometimes it doesn't make it easier, but there's a level of understanding now. Things don't upset me the way that they used to. Now, I've said that, but I also told you at the beginning of class that, 2 weeks ago, I got so upset I got physically ill. But I did learn from that. So I'm always learning. but I always feel his peace and the contentment that comes with that. In Philippians 4, verses 11 through 13, scroll past it. I've been a little off today. That was our conversation on the way here tonight about me being a little off. So Philippians 4, 11 through 13. Not that I speak from, and I'm reading from the Amplified Bible. Not that I speak from any personal need, for I have learned to be content and self-sufficient through Christ, satisfied to the point where I am not disturbed or uneasy regardless of my circumstances. I know how to get along and live humbly in difficult times, and I also know how to enjoy abundance and live in prosperity. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing life, whether well-fed or going hungry, whether having an abundance or being in need. I can do all things which he has called me to do through him who strengthens and empowers me to fulfill his purpose. I am self-sufficient in Christ's sufficiency. I am ready for anything and equal to anything through him who infuses me with inner strength and confident peace. Reading those verses, I hope you can see the contentment and the peace you get from being in God and having God in your life. I had another thing that I had pulled up years ago that I wanted to read to you. But Jesus says, I give peace right in the midst of trouble, right in the midst of distress and turmoil and heartache and pressure. I can impart peace to your heart right there and not as the world gives. Why? Because we can return to that basic relationship we have, you and me and I and you. Out of that comes the guarantee that he is working out his purposes. He will bring us to the end of the trouble. He will still the storm and quiet the waves. So I know that was heavy, but I want to tell you, though, the last 5 years of my career, getting ready and thinking about retirement, I started talking to our operational psychologist at work. We had embedded psychologists and chaplains and physical therapists and I can't remember the rest of them. Anyway, they were all embedded in the squadron, so there's a level of trust that's built up because they're there with you every day and you work with them and hang out with them. So I started spending some time with her just to make sure that all my bases were covered whenever I got ready to retire. And so when I started telling her about my early career and about, before I came into the military, it shocked her. She was just like, that's not the Dunaway I know. I've never seen this part of you. So I brought Lisa in and Lisa corroborated everything and was like, yep, he's telling you the truth. That's the way you used to be. And so it shocked her. And so she asked me, it's funny now. And she laughs about it too. The psychologist, she laughs about it too. But she asked me one day, she said, so what kind of help did you get? What was it that helped you turn around and get past this and get over it?
This is your atheist therapist?
Yes. And so she asked me that, and I looked at her and I said, well, God helped me. And like David said, she's atheist, and she was like, no. People don't just flip like that. What kind of professional help did you get? I said, well, I had the ultimate professional help. I had God helping me, and to this day, she's still like something happened, something you got help somewhere, somebody professional helped you, and so she still struggles with the answer that I gave her, but I still stand firm by that whenever she asks me that, and even whenever she mentions it now. She tells other psychologists and psychiatrists about our 5 years together and me and then how I was acting and the fact that me just spending some time in Iraq, arguing with God helped me get better. So yeah, that's a funny thing that she and I go back and forth on. But thank the good Lord that Lisa was there to corroborate, or she probably never would have believed me. But yeah, so we got about 9 minutes left. Is that right? Yeah, I think does that about cover what I wanted to do in the first two times was just kind of let you guys know about my career, and then I wanted to get a little bit deeper the last couple of Wednesdays. I'm trying to think if I left anything out. Did I leave anything out?
I thought of something for last week where you were running the roads in Iraq and the times that you had been on the road but had to pull off to fix a vehicle, but other vehicles pulled up behind you and beside you because you could hear the plink, plink, plink.
Yeah.
Um,
I thought people were throwing rocks at me. We
There were
pulled
bullets.
up to fix a truck that was broke down, and we were by this big huge field. And so I get out of my truck and walk up, and I knew what the problem was, and so I started fixing it. And I started hearing what I thought were people throwing rocks at me or at the truck, but it was actually people shooting at us. I didn't know it, and so I fixed the truck, dropped the hood, and gave the guys a thumbs up. And they're yelling and pointing behind, and I'm just looking around. And then finally, one of them yelled out, "They're shooting at you!" And so I went running back to our truck, and whenever I got back in my truck, the guys in the truck were laughing at me because they said it looked like Pigpen running. Because we call it moon dust. The sand and the dirt over there is so fine, it's like a talcum powder, and so we call it moon dust. And so when I was running, it looked like Pigpen, and so yeah.
I mentioned that because of your protection.
Yeah.
The prayers that we have from the congregation and just protecting him, even whenever I didn't even know what to pray for. I was so covered up, I guess, with Ruben's therapies because that was all brand new also. So
Ruben was, what, 2?
So it was, I knew that he was protected by God and just all of your prayers. While they were deployed, while he was with this unit that he was telling you about with the KIAs, me and some spouses would meet on a weekly basis and have Bible studies at the chapel on base. And there was a Bible study for Psalm 91. And it's a prayer of protection just for those that are in battle. And so that's why we had put the Psalm 91 with all the military in the hallway. So that's where that stems from.
It's also what the devil quoted from Psalms 91. He will guard you, lift you up. And Jesus said, don't test the Lord your God.
Does anybody have any questions about contentment? I'll say it one more time. Yes.
I think it's difficult for those who've not been in the military to really understand what you go through. My time was way before yours, but I, to this day, still carry things from that war. And for the average person, first they don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
And when they're confronted with it, they're like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And it's always amazed me that people see stories every day about the military, but they don't understand exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
You have to experience it.
It does help what you share, because all we see is a line or a paragraph
Yeah.
in a news report, and it helps with you being able to explain. There's a huge foundation to the little bitty tiny piece that you saw.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that when we get to witness our God.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So about that, whenever he explained to me about the equipment that was left behind and all of the things that are there, that it's not usable.
Good.
I don't know if y'all knew that, but it's not. It's,
Why was the helicopter flying, or was that a false report?
So there are helicopters over there that we've given to the Afghan security forces and the Afghan National Police.
So they captured those
Yeah.
as well? Okay.
Yeah. But the stuff.
Just that they didn't let it
Oh, yeah.
sound that way.
Yeah. But the stuff we left over there is unusable, and it's
Booby trap would have been nice.
would have been. It would have been. But I can just imagine a whole bunch of young folks running around going, "I got a grenade!" Yeah, okay, give me the grenade. I've had to do that before. Put the grenade down. Stop playing with the grenade. But DY, no. Put the grenade down. Stop playing with it.
Don't hit it with that stick again like baseball.
My first deployment, bringing everybody back home, I was already back home. We had an ATV roll off the C-17, a big cargo plane on Robert Field, and we would always get the customs folks from Pensacola to come over, and the customs would run through real quick and then release us. So we would drive this ATV off, and the custom guy comes over, and he's like, "Hey, what is that tape to the front of that ATV?" I was like, "I don't know, sir." So I walk over and I cut it off with my knife, and I'm like, "Just a wad of tape, sir." And he's like, "Wad of tape?" It was a grenade that had flown from Afghanistan all the way back to Robert Field, taped to the front of this ATV, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" But the customs guy was good. He was cool. He was like, "Man, get rid of it, get it off the flight line right now." I'm like, "Yes, sir." Went and got in the truck and drove away and took the grenade away. Wow, it just fun. And at the time, it's like, but then looking back on it, just like, man, how did that make it from Afghanistan?
How did nobody else see it? And
I
take it
know,
off?
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it looked like a wad of tape on the front of the ATV. The customs guy was just like, "What is that? That's not that's unusual." And so anyway, but fun times. And honest to goodness, it was a lot of fun, and I would not change. The only thing that I would change is I would wish that none of these guys had ever been killed in action. But they were doing what they loved. They were doing what they wanted to do and needed to do, and so, utmost respect for them.
Today on Facebook, we have Valeria and Joan Dunaway.
Yeah, that's my mama.
Okay.
Cool. Hi, y'all. So I'm not going to end with that. So I'm going to tell y'all real quick about me getting a haircut yesterday.
Yeah, I saw the post.
Yes.
What's up, man?
So I wanted to get, what was the guy's name? MacGyver. I wanted to get the MacGyver haircut. That's what I wanted. Or a Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon. And they looked at me and they were like, "No, we're not doing that. We're not cutting your hair that way." And I'm thinking in my head, I pay you for doing what I want you to do. Anyway, so Lisa has a special relationship with them. She has a code word. If I ever go to get my hair cut and she sends the code word, no matter what I say, they cut my hair the way Lisa wants it. So luckily they didn't use the code word. But I was sitting there and she said, "So what are we doing to the beard today?" And I said, "Well, Lisa's a little frustrated because it's getting a little shaggy, so we need to clean it up to Lisa's standards." And she's like, "Okay." So I close my eyes, and she hits the bottom of the beard, and she starts going up, and I went, because I just felt it. It was all coming off. It was like, it was exactly what Samson probably went through. But I opened my eyes, and I looked down, and there's this big wad of beard on my chest, and I'm like,
What'd you do to me?
and so she's standing there looking at me, startled, because she thinks I'm probably going to get upset. And in my head, I was very upset. But I was like, take it easy. I mean, come on. And so she said that she would take it easy, and she was gentle with the rest of it for the rest of the time. But she cut my beard to what she thought Lisa would like. And so Lisa's pleased. I'm pleased. We're all pleased. But that was my haircut
It looks
episode
nice.
yesterday.
It
Thank
look
you.
good.
I appreciate that. But yes.
So, is anybody gonna cut your hair to MacGyver?
No. I'll have to go somewhere where they don't know me. The lady that owns Peanuts Barbershop, she gave me my first haircut on Eglin when I just got here out of tech school. So it was around August or September of 97. She gave me my first non-training haircut. And then she moved over to Herbert Field and continued cutting my hair, and now she's got her own shop. So she knows Lisa well enough to know that she can't just let me do what I want to do. It has to be the Lisa standards. So I'll leave you with that. Hopefully that was a little bit funnier than what and Rob wasn't here to hear it. Thank y'all for listening. The next couple of weeks will be just going a little bit deeper and about, just like Lisa was talking about the being in Iraq and looking back on it and knowing that I was absolutely not just the body armor I was wearing and the people that I was running around with and that were but you can definitely see and tell that there was God protecting us and God was there in what we were doing. So we'll talk about that some more over the next couple of weeks. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
You're welcome.